"2,300 years ago, Alexander the Great invaded Asia, his goal to conquer the Persian Empire. We followed in his footsteps a 20,000-mile journey from Greece to the plains of India. By the 5th year of the war, Persia had fallen and the Persian king had been killed. Alexander now set out to overrun their vast eastern empire, and he headed for Afghanistan. Kabul, Afghanistan. Our journey now brought us into a modern-day war. The old city had been devastated. A crossroads on the ancient routes to India, Kabul has been a battleground for more than 2,000 years. The city had been devastated by war. Alexander wintered here in the 5th year of his campaign. He founded a new city close by, another Alexandria, one more step towards uniting the world under Greek rule. For his teacher Aristotle had taught him it was fitting that Greeks should rule barbarians. Settled with Greek and native colonists, Alexander's city would foster a remarkable mixed culture, Greek and Asiatic. I was hoping to see its treasures in Kabul Museum. But that rich legacy, the glass from Egypt, the ivories from India, Chinese lacquer, was all gone. What's left is locked down in the cellars, and even that has been looted and smashed. How did you feel when you saw this?
وقتی که ما داخل موزیم شدیم بعد از مدت بسیار طولانی.
When we saw all this, the museum director said, it was as if our mother and father had died. Our whole history was here.
چرا که این آثاری که شما می‌بینید.
Goodness me, look. The Buddhist head. Just look at that. Look, there's a Greek period Buddha. He's wearing a Greek toga. That's the kind of fusion of East and West that happened in the art too in Afghanistan. This was an absolutely unique civilization, and this museum is the chief record of it in the world. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. It was a somber introduction to Afghan history, but this is a tale of war, and war destroys the past as well as the present. Now, we had no idea what to expect on the road ahead. As Alexander saw it that winter, the eastern part of the Persian Empire was still unconquered. The Greek historian Arrian says a Persian nobleman, Bessus, had proclaimed himself king of Asia and was rallying resistance. It was Bessus who had murdered the previous king, Darius. Now he'd retreated north beyond the Hindu Kush mountains, thinking Alexander wouldn't try to cross till the snows had gone. Alexander took up the challenge. The next stage of our journey was to follow Alexander over the Hindu Kush, but to get out there we needed a vehicle. Certainly is a Land Rover. So, do you think we'll get all the way up the Panjshir with this?
Yes, I'm sure.
Really?
Of course, all over Afghanistan.
Really? So you're the expert then, are you, Mr. Zalmay? Alexander had burned his wagons when he entered Afghanistan. They slowed the army, they were always breaking down. So his troops crossed the country entirely on foot or horseback.
Yes, this is especially made for the bad road of Afghanistan.
B, B, C. Early in the spring, Alexander set off. Ahead of him, the great mass of the Hindu Kush, which rises to 20,000 feet. On the other side, his enemy Bessus was waiting. There were three main passes. Bessus expected Alexander to come the direct route, and he devastated the land there to deny Alexander supplies. But Alexander never did what was expected. He chose the longer eastern route and went up the Panjshir Valley, heading for the Khawak Pass. Travelling up the Panjshir Valley today, it's almost impossible to believe that a great army could have made its way through here. But they did. Throughout the whole of history, armies had to find a way over the Hindu Kush, and this tended to be the favourite route. Tamburlaine the Great, for example, came this way on his way from the Oxus to India in 1398. And your main problem, especially in the spring, was not the terrain, but was the cold and especially the lack of food and provisions. And as it turned out, that was exactly the problem that Alexander faced. The local people had buried their winter supplies to foil the Macedonian foragers, so Alexander's men had to take their own food with them. Okay, no, can we put the bonnet down? Yeah. Shut up. You guys want to come and push? Our Land Rover soon began to struggle. Alexander had been right. Wheeled vehicles can be a liability on these roads. Handbrake off. 1, 2, 3. The Russians also found their mechanized gear failed here against men fighting on foot and supplied by mule. Eventually, our Land Rover would go no further. Davey, can you hear me? We've developed a very bad clonking noise suddenly. It sounds as if it could be the half shop. So we're going to pull in, okay? And it wasn't the last of our problems.
The road is closed.
The road is closed?
Yeah, because of landslide.
And where is this? Could you ask the gentleman?
در کدام هستی؟ چقدر دور است؟ Just after 5 minutes we will reach there.
Really? And impossible for vehicles to get through? Or?
میگم موتر میتونه رفته یا نمیتونه؟ No, it's impossible.
Only donkeys?
میگه تنها خر میدن رفته.
Told you we should use donkeys on this part of the trip. How long do you think it will take a bulldozer to clear?
Bulldozer 1 hour.
1 hour?
Yes, 1 hour. 1 hour, I'm not half hour.
Yes, but then they have to build the road again.
Oh.
Look, the road has gone. We were obviously here for the night, so we went back to the nearest village. What is the name of the village where we leave the cars and we start to walk up to the pass?
Hawak.
That's Hawak.
Yeah, that's Hawak.
And Hawak is-
Hawak village.
And Hawak is after Dasht Reba.
That's right.
Yeah.
یا مثلا مجھے ما
Alexander always used local guides. If they did well, they were rewarded. If they misled him, they were killed. Simple but effective.
از امیر راه رفته بود و ما میخوایم پل پای از او را تعقیب کنیم که از کدام راه در کدام قسمت های افغانستان رفته بود.
Is it easy to find the men with the horses?
انشالله آسان است، هیچ گپی نداره. اوجا کماندان خلیل میگن اوجا وظیفه دار اوجا شما اوجا برسید انشالله به زودترین فرصت به شما اسم میگیره شما بخیر حرکت میکنید.
So Halil organizes the
نامش خلیل گفتیم.
خلیل، کماندان خلیل.
کماندر خلیل.
Commander Halil.
Yeah,
Oh,
Commander
right,
Halil.
right. Great, great, great.
Oh, sorry.
Alexander the Great had a sapper corps to do this sort of stuff for him. In fact, Alexander's sappers and engineers are one of the keys to his speed of movement. They did this kind of job for him all the way to India. We abandoned our Land Rover and took a lift on towards the foot of the pass. The track began to rise now. We passed travellers walking in long zigzags up the hillsides. It was easy to imagine the Macedonians doggedly trudging forward. This road was actually only made up for cars a few years ago, and until that point it was really a track that only horses could use. And although Alexander's army must have been able to come along the river valley in those wide open spaces in the early part of the Panjshir, here they would have been single file. So it would have taken them hours to pass any given point. And the army must have stretched for 10 miles, who knows, maybe all the way back down the Panjshir, which explains why it took 17 days to cross.